founder of Just Be, a bespoke consultancy firm established in 2013 that supports creators, producers, and distributors in developing, financing, and scaling animated intellectual properties, IP, for global audiences. Justine Bannister sits with us to discuss where producers go wrong, what buyers actually want, and how to identify true originality.
Good evening, I'm Veronica Arciari and welcome to the Deep Media Pulse, the first video podcast dedicated to the evolution of content, IPs and brands, produced by Licensing Magazine together with Animation Journal. I'm very pleased to introduce to you our new guest today on the Deep Media Pulse podcast, Justine Bannister. Thank you so much for being with us. Justine, I would ask you to introduce yourself to our audience.
Okay. Ciao, Veronica. Thank you for inviting me. Ciao, everybody. Lovely to meet you all. Well, I'm an independent consultant. Just Be is just me. I help producers and creatives find funding, finance, talent, partners, whatever they need to get a project over the line and into production. And then I don't get involved with the production at all. They help more people. And on the other side, I look for projects for clients. I help studios find projects for their services. I do a lot of funding applications, and I do funding evaluations. So I work for the European Commission, I work for film markets, I sit on juries, I put together sessions, different types of content, I work on initiatives, anything that can help producers and creators find a way to get their projects made, even within this restricted marketplace that's ever shrinking.
So let's learn from your insights, from all the things you do, all the hats you wear in the industry. Let's see, what do you think is or are maybe the greatest mismatch between the production and the need? So what producers are creating and what buyers are actually looking for. Like, do you see any gaps in that? And if so, how could they be filled?
It's a mighty big question. Well, I think in my experience, often buyers, investors, so that would include producers, distributors, broadcasters, platforms, often don't know what they want until they see it. In terms of mismatch, there's quite a few trends. There's a big trend in aging up animation, adult animation, anime, and very few platforms to house them. So there are a huge number of projects with very few places to go. So the competition is kind of insane. It's very tight, and the bar is very high in terms of production values. There's always been an absolute love of adult animation. I think it's a geek thing, it's a nerdy thing, it's just what animators love. And I think also there's a big trend towards features. I've seen a lot of TV companies this week specifically, people who traditionally work on series, even digital first, have all got feature projects this year, and a lot of adult feature projects. Also, not many places to take those, so it's very, very difficult to find a home for feature.
So, and in a sense, also speaking about the current trends of the industry, maybe the future ones, but what is maybe a current consensus, a current trend in the industry at the moment that you disagree with, or like a belief that you disagree with? Maybe, a sort of, even a stereotype, we could say, in animation now in 2026, that you would say, I don't think that's quite right. Or maybe if there is one that you actually agree with.
I've been hearing so many times from broadcasters and investors that they want pre-existing, well-known IPs with pre-existing awareness. So things that have been around, big brands, yet nobody wants to miss a really great original project. And history has shown that really the really big successes are actually original shows. So there's that. We're looking for this. We don't really know what we want to do. We see it kind of thing, but it's risk adverse. It's being risk adverse, spreading the risk and like not taking big chances on things. But I think there's a dichotomy there. Things are, what people say and what they're really doing is not quite the same thing. So there's room for both.
Speaking again of dichotomy or sort of like trends, I think maybe there's a risk that in some projects there's a tendency to try and be trendy, in the sense like to tick all the boxes, to maybe sort of sell the soul to the marketing, as in say that the original project is in a way, but then maybe since the industry is going towards a direction, it's maybe go with that flow, with that direction, but losing a bit of the originality and maybe losing a little bit of that original heart of the project. How do you think you can tell when a project is selling its soul to become, sort of successful, and when do you think, on the other hand, you can tell if there's really a heart that is original? And what would you suggest, to avoid that, like to try to not fall into the trap of ticking all the boxes, and rather just like trying to stick to the original idea, maybe following some strategies, of course, because it's still an industry that has some rules. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think the key has been authentic. So there's a real demand for creator-led, impassioned projects, and you can really sense that. If there's a lack of authenticity, it's really easy to tell. There's been a lot of projects that have evolved around toys that have totally lacking in soul, and there are projects that have evolved around toys that have total soul because they've put together a true concept with real characters that are relatable, that are funny, that kids are going to love. I think that's just so, and there's a real demand for creator-led. So I think it's seeing producers or creators or both pitching together, working together on a project. You really sense, you can sense it a mile away. If you've seen hundreds of projects, what's authentic and what's not. Because there's such a need, and there is definitely trends in being inclusive and being diverse and respecting the environment, in difference. And there are projects that you see that it's just a question of ticking boxes. Right? They're going, okay, we've been diverse in our characters and putting these guys together. If it's not integral to the project, and the actual writing and the storytelling and the characters themselves, it shows. It's fake. So I think that you can tell from a mile away. To be totally original is really difficult, right? But so even if a project is not totally original, it's the way it's treated. If the characters' true characterization, they're a little bit different, a little bit kooky, a little bit more relatable to real children or real kids or real adults or whoever the target is for, understanding who you're working for as a producer or creative and who you're trying to reach and the message is trying to get across. I think it's about authenticity, and it's about humor. And also it's also a treatment of, in terms of design. You can tell when something's been put together with care and love and attention. It just shows. It's just very apparent. So I think it's paying attention to detail, not trying to tick all the boxes. If they're not an integral part of the storytelling or the characterization, if they're not meaningful, then and also it becomes a mishmash. If you're trying to tick too many boxes, it becomes tasteless. Or I used to say, you're a pudding, right? So it's not a good idea. No. But originality can come from something that a project that might not be seemingly totally original in concept, and it's the way it's treated and the way it's taken care of. So I think that's the key.
And would you have, in this sense, any examples of good practice of this, like of things that you would consider like, okay, they're trending, but they've not forced it? Would you be able to bring some examples of that you could consider as successful in that sense?
Specific shows.
Yeah.
Well, yes, I've got the most successful show in the whole world is Bluey, right? So that's totally original, but yet not. It's a family of dogs, which is not the most original concept on the planet. It's the way it's been treated with authenticity and care and totally relatable, yeah? And also to parents and caregivers, not just to kids. So I think there's the way things are done, and the results speak for themselves, So I think that's the perfect example. Not a very original for me to say, but there are lots and I have hundreds of examples of shows that are the exact opposite. But I can't mention them, can I?
Thank you so much, Justine, for being with us. It was a pleasure to hear insights from you. I hope you enjoyed listening, and I'll see you in the next episode of the Deep Media Pulse. Thank you for listening.
You've just listened to The Deep Media Pulse, Decoding Brand and Content Evolution, a video podcast powered by Licensing Magazine and Animation Journal. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next episode.